I'm live now. Splish splash, I'm in your ass. What's up? I'm doing the self promo links. Uh, let's see. Kind of gotta put it in the tippy. I gotta get just the tippy. I put that in there. I want to get some. I want to get like a viewer or two. Um, Probably gonna be Tipster and Max if I had to assume. But see you typing. What am I doing wrong? Everything. Hold on. Hey, everything good on your end? Okay. Awesome. Nice. Nice, nice. Oh, Big Gay has arrived. Tipster. All right. Tippy, we are going to learn about the complexity of something that's totally not a slur, which is why he is self-censoring it in the title. Um, off the bat, uh, kind of already defeating his own argument with just the title. Uh, that's the title there. Look, this word, that's a slur. That's not a slur. I just gotta treat it like it is one. Okay. Probably blames the content gods, but whatever. Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready to hear this man paternalistically? Um, Wait, my audio still ass? What? Is it? Wait, is my audio ass or not? Is Tipster lying to me? Is Tipster gaslighting me? Damn, you are gay. Nothing's more conniving than a gay than a gay man. Okay, think about it. J. Edgar Hoover, proof.
Videos that hit over 1 million views within a few months, with a 5th and possibly even 6th on the way. I got a ton of new subscribers. I made some videos that I'm extremely proud of, videos that I had been hoping to do as soon as I got on the platform. So they were like long-standing dreams. And I think I fully established myself as one.
So swing low. Want me to talk low? Okay, Tipster, it might just be your speakers.
One of the top people doing the type of content.
Here, I am also this guy very long-winded, so we are doing 1.5. Turn down him a little bit. Gotcha.
That I do. However, in the middle of this wave of success, I thought about quitting several times. It wasn't due to the constant drama and needling from various people who had beef with me. It wasn't due to running out of ideas or anything more typical. I was thinking about quitting because I wasn't sure if I was okay with the unintended consequences of my success. The fact is, if you're black and successful, that means you're probably finding that your peers and the people around you are starting to look less and less like you. And suddenly you're managing how you're perceived and how said perception might affect your future opportunities. But also you're in negotiation with how you continue to try to relate to the black spaces that you still reside in and how those spaces might perceive you as you constantly go in and out of that space to travail through white spaces. You might wonder, are you being rewarded for your talent and hard work, or tokenized for your ability to go along and get along and not rock the boat too much? Is your success the fruit of your labor or the benefits for allowing yourself to be exploited? And most significantly,
Okay, like does anyone know if FD Signifier is supposed to be like a leftist or a liberal? Because I feel like um it's bisexual lighting because the person whose apartment I'm in is a bisexual. This is how all the lights look in her house, by the way. But yeah, this is a smokescreen to lure in the video essayist crowd, who are overwhelmingly gay and retarded.
what are your priorities in that equation? Are you actually still making efforts to represent and speak for the community you came from? Or are you willing to do anything in order to keep your spot? That conflict is at the heart of what defines the idea and concept of being a sellout or Sambo or Uncle Tom and it's also a core theme to the 2000 film Bamboozled. Bamboozled is a 2000 film by Spike Lee that feels like it was made in 2025 because its subject matter and themes have never stopped being relevant. This film is prescient in so many ways because in an era of Tubi or Zeus Network or the American League of Magical Negroes, gotta hope that movie doesn't turn out to be as awful as its preview suggests. On top of this, we also still live in a social media age where coonery and buffoonery is still very valuable and still very lucrative. So it makes sense to use this film as a guide to...
I just want to clarify, I don't like have that much of an issue with the word code. My issue is just on how it's used. Are there people that definitely fit the label of coon? Yeah, that is like Candace Owens, Jesse Lee Peterson. I am not going to speak up for their honor if somebody calls them a race traitor. That's what coon is, and stuff like that. And I can there. It's a weird label to throw out willy nilly, but there are definitely some people that fit it. It's well, I think he just did it because of the title, Nicholas Labenhoff. Um, it's there are definitely people who fit it, and I don't care. But when you start, what people like FD Signifier, his mods, one of his mods called me a fucking octoroon, okay, which I had to Google, because I am not used to like learning about slave terms or whatever, because I just said that I don't think Shark is a race traitor for arguing against people that are anti-race mixing. That's literally all it took. So the problem I have is not the use of the word at all. It's who it's being used on and why. I just clicked the OBS.
Pack what it really means to be and get back to some good old media analysis. So this is the Black Media Breakdown.
See, this is indicative of one of my issues with him. It can't be the FD Signifier media breakdown. I mean, he's probably going to be breaking down media that is black, but he likes to self-insert himself as like a representative of what black people think, when I'm pretty sure his opinions like don't line up perfectly with most of the black community, because black community is not a monolith. There's a lot of different thoughts of different levels of right wing and left wing. It can fluctuate from city to city, county to county. There's just much varied difference between black people and out instead of outside of black people. So it's not that's all I'm saying. I might be eating crow because you might be just talking about black media.
We have to start by talking about Spike Lee, who I've somehow managed not to really get into a lot this entire time making videos. He is the most acclaimed and prolific black director of all time, as well as probably the most interesting and complex, having went through multiple phases of being a superstar director and a pariah and now something in between.
He's at it again. Spike Lee is one.
I like Spike.
Again, exploring the dynamics of race relations. Lee thrives on the topic that Hollywood once thought was taboo.
I think we should be more demanding of the audience, I think most films today are made for 2-year-olds.
Spike Lee started out as a Hollywood darling, getting his start at Morehouse College and then film school at NYU. As is often the case with talented black people, white institutions eventually came and extracted him out of where he originated at. He was offered resources well beyond what he could have done making independent films in the New York scene or wherever he was, cutting his teeth at.
Our generation went to film school. We didn't care about the degrees. All we wanted was the equipment. All we want was equipment.
Right, the access to the equipment.
That's all we didn't care about. We just wanted access to equipment.
And when that does happen to a talented black person, the deal usually is, hey, we're here to make your dreams come true, and it'll be a seamless and haggle-free experience. It's seldom mentioned the totality of that wager and what you're going to have to go through to reach those dreams up front. This is the crossroads for many black luminaries. Either you go forth into the white world at their own peril, or be satisfied with the adulation and acclaim of a smaller, predominantly black space, minus the chances at greater fame and greater resources to make art. Spike Lee's first film, She's Gotta Have It, put him on the map. His second film, School Days, put on display that he could do even better with a bigger budget. He looked like he was going to be the next big thing in Hollywood, but these were first and foremost black movies, and mostly concerned themselves with issues and themes that were easily understood by black audiences only. So with his third film, he took a swing at something.
I mean, from what I know about 90s films, and I'm saying this as somebody who look, my first word, like, my first word was bird, but my first sentence was fucking bitch. And the reason my first ever sentence my first sentence I ever said was fucking bitch was because my mom thought I was asleep on the couch and she was watching Boys in the Hood. And the 90s, when I grew up, was a very specific time where black movies were like probably more culturally relevant then than I think they like black movies are now, with maybe the exception of Get Out. Black movies let's see, Friday, Boys in the Hood, Juice, or all I would even consider Training Day, even though Training Day was like a little after the 90s. Spike Lee came in at a time when I think white America was more curious about black people than they were in the past. I think the aftermath of not that white people weren't racist or whatever, but there was definitely a lot of more interest in movies about menace to society and stuff like that. But the point I'm making is like my mom was like a white woman that had her black Mexican child asleep, and the movie she chose to watch was Boys in the Hood. So it's like the idea that like Spike Lee was like that Hollywood was not interested in like black culture and stuff like that just is not very true. I think probably the 90s were like the 90s and like early 2000s were like the golden age of like really good movies about very specifically like the hood, and I think that there is like a level of like cultural voyeurism going on there, but I don't think all of it is malicious. I think some of it can be genuine interest, and then the other can be like poverty porn.
More universal, but also incredibly challenging with Do the Right Thing.
You know, deep down inside.
Do the Right Thing. Such a movie.
Laugh if you want to. You know, your hair is kinkier than mine. What does that mean?
Yeah, Tipster knows what I'm talking about. Tipster's probably watched all of these movies. All right.
Italians.
You know, I've been listening and reading.
You been reading now?
This is possibly still his most acclaimed film to date. It was on tons of best lists the year it came out. Siskel and Ebert named it their best movie of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
Do the Right Thing does not have good guys and bad guys, and in fact, one of the film's biggest surprises comes when one of the characters that we really like commits a violent act. What Spike Lee is doing here is throwing out all of the cliches and all of the nice, soft, soothing reassurances that we like to give ourselves about life in America, and showing step by step how everyday events can lead up to a racial incident, an incident that grows out of a long history of racism in America.
And it has been on many a greatest film of all time list, but in that year, it wasn't even nominated for a Best Picture award.
It seems to me that in order to be nominated as one of the 5 best pictures of the year, a movie should at least have a touch of greatness somewhere in it. The other 4 nominees do. Dead Poets Society does not. And of course, when you think that this movie was nominated instead of Do the Right Thing, it shows you at least some Academy voters who are living in the past.
This would be the first time Spike faced the reality of his position.
I like Dead Post. It's definitely not better than Do the Right Thing, though.
He may be a white audience's favorite Negro, but he'd always be in a disempowered position. He would be incentivized to not rock the boat and be grateful for his spot, and he would be punished if he did the opposite. Do the Right Thing, with its ambiguous ending, elicited protests and complaints that it was anti-white and recalls race riots. And even decades later, it's clear he's still kind of angry about this snub.
I know it was a long time ago, and you should let some grudges go. But David Denby and Joe Klein wrote articles to New York Magazine saying, hope to God that this film does not open in your neighborhood. That this film, Do the Right Thing, would incite black people to tear.
I will say that black movies have always historically been snubbed for Academy stuff, and that's a large part of that is because I need like the normies to understand the Academy and like Oscars and stuff. None of that shit has to do with how good people think the movie is. All of that has to do with like agents knowing the right people and convince. God damn it! Wait, hold on. Okay, never mind. I thought because the heater kicked on, it might ruin the audio. But as I was saying, the Oscars and Academy are purely about agents knowing the right people, getting like these like Academy voters. That it's all like transactional. There's no appreciation of art here. That's why I hate like award shows and stuff like that. And I hated when Comedy Central tried to do their own award things. Award shows are a sham. They're very much if you don't get some kind of award or something like that, that has nothing to do with how it has very little to do with how good your art is. It has more to do with how connected your agency is.
To take to the streets like Detroit in 77 or Newark in 1968. We're on the right side of history, her street. Thank you very much.
And more importantly, from then on, Spike constantly found it difficult to get funding for his films, even as he kept regularly making money for studios.
I've been doing Kickstarter before there was Kickstarter. That's how I raised the money for my first one. She's gonna have it.
So why go Kickstarter then? If you know how to raise money, why are you going there?
Because crowdfunding is the new wave that get financing. Crowdfunding, where you go directly to your base, directly to the people who love. She's gonna have it. School days, do the right thing. Malcolm X, he got game.
I love the Malcolm X movie, by the way.
Inside Man, Kings of Comedy, Kobe doing work. That's a body of work that's been amassed over 3 decades.
Though it can't be denied that he definitely did have some unforced errors of his own, it didn't make sense to him why it was so hard for him to get a project off the ground. Some years later, Spike Lee would make Malcolm X, a movie he had to fight for the right to direct. But after that, Lee clearly fell out of favor in the studio system. By the time he gets to Bamboozled, he's 15 years in the game and at what seems like his lowest point. And he's over being treated like some major risk or oddity in Hollywood.
Are people already going crazy about this movie? Are you getting a lot of, is there a lot of controversy about this?
Well, number one, I'm really tired of that word controversy. I think that it's so easy today, Dave, the label people. And I think it's just an act of laziness where you don't want to spend the time to say who these people are, describe something, just put one word to it. And for me, Spike Lee film, controversy right away. I think this film is a very thought-provoking film.
He's also extremely frustrated with the way black people are being depicted in the media and the types of black shows and movies that are being green-lit while his movies that are showing a more productive and positive image of blackness can't get any funding.
Jamie Foxx said this about you. Have you seen this quote?
Yeah, I've seen it.
With the most respect I can give him, I think he needs to back off a little. I think it's getting to the point where nobody cares because he talks about it so much that now he's just become the angry guy, the angry black man.
I read that quote. To me, the anger I talk about is not the anger that let's burn down the United States, let's overthrow the government. I think anger could be constructive. And if I see a show like The Secret Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer, which was a show about a sitcom about the Holocaust, you know, my ancestors were slaves. I don't think there is anything funny about slavery. So if I voice...
I'm gonna say I'm not familiar. I think that movie was a bit before my time. Does anyone else know about Desmond Pfeiffer? Hello, Saliva. That's not something I'm very familiar with.
Is Spike even angry? Is Spike angry that a show like this is allowed to be on television?
Yes. Spike wanted to make movies about Joe Louis and Jackie Robinson, but he couldn't get them made. So Bamboozled became his commentary on the entirety of the system and the experience that he was having being a talented black person, having to force himself into a specific box in order to get the accolades, recognition, and support that he deserved. And again, despite being made over 20 years ago, it perfectly encapsulates all these conflicts just as clearly as it might have today. Bamboozled centers around one Pierre Delacroix. Wayans is also part of one of the most prominent black families in Hollywood, the Wayans, who have worked independently in Hollywood for decades now, though probably most famous at the time for the black comedy sketch show In Living Color. Wayans as Delacroix doesn't make any sense. His real name, first off, is not Pierre Delacroix, it's Peerless Dothan.
What are you gonna do, Peerless?
And Wayans gives him this ridiculous speaking voice and mannerisms that are explicitly not black coded.
Now, I have been doing a lot of soul searching, okay? And once again, you're right. My previous work has been all surface, superficial. Had I been informed of this very important staff meeting, I would have canceled my Pilates session this morning. I am so happy to see you, Cat.
Hey, what's up? Something that Delacroix would have had to pick up through years as a tool to separate himself from other black folks. That's my impression, y'all. I hope it wasn't too distracting.
You need to ghoul that shit out!
Delacroix is Harvard educated and clearly very successful, so clearly something about this has worked for him. But he's also in a bit of a rut and in need of a win at his writer's job for a major TV network.
I was never good at performing under the gun. Well, this wasn't a gun. It was a bazooka, and it was pressed point blank against my temple.
So from jump, this character already has some very clear anti-black tendencies, and the black audience is meant to distrust him based on how he presents himself.
I don't want anything to do with anything black for at least a week.
Black people watching will have been keen to understand that there's like code switching, right? Where you speak in a more appropriate and proper cadence and inflection in order not to scare the white people that you might be speaking to. This is how you talk to the police. And that's
Soon, Saliva. I'm going over FD Signifier's very very limited analysis of what he thinks race traitor is.
It's normal. Most black people know how to do that. What Delacroix is doing is trying to completely alienate himself from.
You know, code switching goes both ways. I don't know if you guys know that. I think a lot of code switching, it has to do. I don't know if you've ever like been in. I think a lot of code. I don't, specifically what code switching is in the black community is not talking as black as you might normally, just so you know, to not scare white people, get better you know, treatment and stuff like that. And then when you're home, you talk different or whatever. A lot of you, there are. I don't know if you've ever been to like seen a white person like try to become friendly with a bunch of black people. They will code switch too, and I'm like, it's a lot less authentic because they're trying to get it, but and it's also like not the same like on a like a power level or anything like that. But I think a lot of it is like just people just wanting while they're interacting with somebody else, just wanting to make them comfortable. Like as like there are white people that will put on a black voice, and it's very funny to see. I'm putting on a white voice right now, actually. I don't know if you guys know that. I talk. You will never know what I actually sound like. I actually sound like these. I am Speedy Gonzalez. No, I'm kidding.
Any type of black aesthetic that people would attach to him until he opens his mouth.
Slavery has been over 400 years ago. We need to stop thinking that way. Stop crying over the white man this, the white man that.
This is important because as Delacroix goes through the story, you'll be prone to think that he's changing, but in reality, he's just becoming more of who he always was. Along with Delacroix, we have Sloane, played by Jada Pinkett. She is his assistant, and her plight as a woman is almost the exact same plight as Pierre Delacroix, but the movie doesn't take a lot of time to dig through it, which is actually kind of spot on in how historically examining the challenges of racism toward black men has often required black women to take a back seat. Though this element does come up later and has a few pointed moments in the story, Spike just isn't immune to having his fair share of covert and overt 80s and 90s era misogyny, but at least he kind of acknowledges it.
Yay, saliva.
It's funny how a man always has to perceive an attractive young lady as having to fuck or suck somebody in order to get to the top.
But as I said earlier, this movie is really about him and his experiences, so it centers around Delacroix. I'm going to say that name differently every time I say it, y'all. I'm sorry. It's just how the word works. And so when we start the film, Sloane and Delacroix are under the gun because their TV station is floundering and they need ideas. To make all this worse, their immediate supervisor, Dunwitty, played by Michael Rappaport, is not interested in any type of black media that doesn't adhere to a specific marketable image of blackness.
The material you've been writing for me, it's too white bread. It's white people with black faces. The Huxtables, Cosby, a genius, revolutionary. Theo, Lisa Bonet, dope. But we can't go down that road again.
This character, which was supposed to be a criticism of like Quentin Tarantino.
I will say that like a lot of to go forward on my point where I was talking about how like what the like renaissance of black media in the 90s in regards to, you know, don't be a menace, you know, like menace to society. I almost said don't be a menace to South Central and drink your juice in the hood. But no, but like, you know, all the movies that I was talking about, they were popular for the same reason gangster rap became popular. Not because black people like gangster rap, but because white suburban kids like gangster rap. And that definitely had material effects on what kind of film and music was being pushed out of black artistry. I liked the Cosby Show when I was growing up. I liked Fresh Prince. Like seriously, like I consider James Avery closer to being my dad than my actual dad was. And that's like where I learned a lot of my like positive masculinity was from those late night black shows that were specifically trying to buck that trend.
Edgy white guy who's watched a few hood movies and listed some Tupac and assumes that they have a strong understanding of blackness and that makes him prone to be out of pocket.
Wasn't ever any second guessing yourself because slavery is still such a hot button issue.
Yeah, I know it is, but I think that's a damn shame.
Looking at my computer, I don't know if I would ever heard it. All right, hey, download this. I don't know how to do that.
See,
all right?
see, this is what I was talking. I just said there are white people that will put on black voice. This is and with Tarantino is a great example.
Storage.
Jimmy, you know I ain't seen no shit.
Did you notice a sign in the front of my house that said dead storage?
It's
a great scene,
ironic
by
that
the
this
way.
character is played by Michael Rappaport, who eventually had a major falling out with Spike Lee because he's been in a few hood movies and listed some Tupac and assumes that he has a strong understanding of blackness and so is prone to also being out of pocket.
Things evolve, they get better. You know what I mean? And those neighborhoods in Brooklyn, the majority of the neighborhoods that have been gentrified were either abandoned. Williamsburg was a joke in the 90s. It was like this little niche.
Michael Rappaport now is like a crazy Zionist, stuff like that. There is definitely like a very specific strand of like white guy who had a lot of black friends growing up who's a little too comfortable speaking on things they might not understand. That is a very specific type of dude. I know like 3 of them.
Place, it was like, warehouses. It's good that it got better.
First of all, motherfucking rappers know what he's fucking talking about. Here's the thing, gentrification, what Michael Rapport left out because he's stupid, he did not talk about the people who can no longer afford to live in Williamsburg, who can no longer afford to live in Fort Greene, who can no longer afford to live in
Like what he's spitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better for you.
Somebody in my comment section joked that Michael Rappaport didn't have a script and he was just kind of riffing off the chain. So when you hear him with lines like this,
I know black people my whole life. I mean, if the truth be told, I probably know better than you.
Put some new knowledge in your fucking dry ass dreads. Yo, man. You're fucking.
kind of makes sense. Dunwoody is very explicit about the fact that he wants something really black and really real, to which Delacroix and Sloan have the radical idea to offer
Yeah,
something.
the conflation that like real blackness always has to do with poverty is a very problematic.
So offensive that it would likely get them fired, freeing them from their contracts with severance.
Dunwoody wants a show, so that's what I intend to give him. The show will be so negative, so offensive and racist. Point being that him, the network, does not want to see Negroes on television unless they are buffoons.
Delacroix and Sloan find Tommy Davidson as Womack and Savion Glover as Man Ray, 2 down-on-their-luck street performers squatting in abandoned buildings trying to make ends meet. They are to be the stars of a new age minstrel show. They will be the front face of the...
Our show is satirical.
Wait a minute. Hey, we're gonna need a little more money for this. Come on. 10 little niggas?
Okay, you get more money.
Delacroix and Sloan leave the hard work up to the poor Negroes. I won't get too much into my leftist class analysis bag, but I can't skimp it too much here. We have a bourgeois black person exploiting the poverty of the black poor as a way to ingratiate themselves with white bosses. There's no way for me to not notice that. Black excellence, y'all. They pitch the show to Dunwoody, who loves it, and then it's on. Womack becomes Sleep and Eat, and Man Ray becomes Man Tan.
I don't even. I think even if you were a lot of this would happen still, even if like Michael Rappaport characters was black, because at the end of the day, they are appealing to the largest demographics in the country. You know, if there wasn't a like language barrier with Hispanics, they would be a lot more represented in mainstream media. So that like the majority of the people that watched BET were not black. I need you to understand that. All right, there's a reason like Aaron McGruder had a lot of very poignant fucking criticisms of BET, to the point of even calling it black exploitation television, because it frankly a lot you could make a very good argument that a lot of the programming on there was that, and they had a white CEO during the whole time. But even if BET had a black CEO, which I'm sure they've had one at least once, if they haven't, that's surprising, they would still be doing this kind of thing because it's what sells. At the end of the day, like there are white people, black people, they will throw themselves, each other, anything over the bus for under the bus for capital accumulation. And I think that needs to be remembered all the time. That's why I have like a little bit of a problem when people are like, support black business. I'm like, well, does this black business support black people? Because what's the statistic that says like something like 77% of like all money is concentrated. No, wait, it's 43% of all money in the United States. Like, no, 43% of every white of all white wealth is concentrated in the top 1%. It's 77% for black people. Obviously, poverty and stuff like that messes with it, but it should show that black capitalists are just as willing to exploit black people as white people are. And you should always remember that.
What's the name? Sleep and eat. Sleep and motherfucking eat. Oh, shit.
And 10, sleep and eat. 2 real.
Real, keeping it real.
I know that this is out there, right? We follow the trials and tribulations of Mantan, sleep and eat. 2 real, the Dusty Duo.
And there they have it, Mantan's new millennial minstrel show. Let's go there a little bit, shall we? Minstrel shows were a type of vaudevillian variety show popular in America from the 1800s up until almost the 1960s, believe it or not.
From way down south, where the corn and potatoes used to grow, there's great big elegant pictures show, and my old Kentucky home is a French chateau.
I will say like the modern version of this is probably like I don't know how old any of you are to remember 10 years ago when Vine was popping off. Vine was just there's probably some TikToks too that you could probably like. A lot of Vine was just straight up minstrel shit. upplaying criminality for like comedic effect and stuff like that. And a lot of people like to say like it's just jokes, which sure, but jokes convey ideas. All right, like you're not laughing at nothing when you laugh at a joke. You are laughing at a message that's being conveyed. Okay, a joke is just a roundabout way of saying something. So if when people get mad at it, it's you like unless it's like there's obviously some like irony poison like to the point where like it's funny because it doesn't make sense. There's that, but King back set us back decades. Maybe he's changed his tune. I haven't seen what he's done since Vine.
It was an explicitly racist form of entertainment where white actors would put black makeup on their faces, paint their lips, and lampoon the behavior and actions of black slaves and black freedmen. These shows were incredibly popular and successful for decades, and born from them plenty of participants who weren't white, but sometimes still in blackface. In fact, some black minstrel acts would laud their blackness as authentic, and seemingly these black minstrel shows were better reviewed than their white counterparts. While the minstrel show was an explicit form of variety theater, its popularity and influence...
Always remember, like, racist. The only thing racist white people love more than white people are black people that are racist against black people. All right, never fall for that. When they're like, "How can I be racist? I have a black friend, a black wife," and then like you see some dude who looks like Black Light Yagami. All right, just with straight fucking hair. Dude, bro, it's fine. You can call me an N-word when you want. Not that that's usually the guy that's like that, but like, you get my point.
Made it into regular TV and dictated the work of many a black comedian and actor throughout the early 1900s. Even without the black face paint, the desire to see black people behaving in a way that reinforced stereotypes and negative perceptions of black people was always popular. One of the first breakthrough black actors of the 1900s was a man named Lincoln Perry, better known as Stepin Fetchit, who was billed as the laziest man alive.
No, that's me.
Everybody was trying to wake me up. I ain't bother nobody, just busy getting my own business, doing nothing, resting up.
He parlayed this comedy act into one of the most successful film careers a black man had ever had at the time. This success brought him life-changing wealth, but what was the cost? That's a question that's going to come up multiple times here. What is the cost of this type of activity on a black person's spirit? And further, what is the consequence for the community being harmed in the process? More on that later. To get back to the story, Sloan has a brother named Big Black Africa who's constantly dead named as Julius. Big Black Africa and his rap group, the Mau Mau's, are interesting. I find myself reevaluating their presence in the film at the age and intellectual stage I am now. On the surface, they're another spoof of black radicalism, and today would be pejoratively referred to as hoteps.
We from here on, henceforth and whatnot, this should spell black. B-L-A-K. Not B-L-A-C-K.
And this is not unique, despite what some white figures continue to want to say about black separatism and blittlers. The truth is that black radicalism has rarely been taken seriously by most black Americans since the 1970s, and somewhat for good reason, as many a would-be black radical or revolutionary has ended up being exposed as a quack or a scammer or abuser, sometimes all three. In response, black media has openly mocked the image of black radicalism for decades, with Damon Wayans ironically being one of the most iconic people to do it.
Well, they're ridiculing black conservatism pretending to be black radicalism. I think that's a very I don't know how you ping people, Max. Probably at them or something. I don't know. It might have to be a setting thing. I don't know. I'm very stupid. I think it's very important that to note that the majority of people who make fun of hoteps are black, and what people will make fun of for the hotepery stuff is mainly hypocrisy, because like they will like talk all this shit about black everything, then get caught with a white woman. That's very normal. It's mostly the conservative elements that are being lampooned. I don't really see the leftist elements of black radicalism being lampooned, because they're just frankly pretty agreed upon. Like the idea that like the Black Panthers and stuff like that are still revered and stuff like that. Especially like when you talk about like policy achievements that they got, like spurring the government to do free breakfast, and stuff like that. The all the good parts of black radicalism are pretty agreed upon. It's the conservative elements that are pretending to be leftist, which is what are being lampooned. So like the idea that Wayans is making commentary on black radicalism in general, as opposed to the conservative parts of it, I think is ignorant or dishonest.
My gonads with gigantic proportions, and the signing of the prohibition, you see, defecates the fluid of the tension between the essence of the Euro intercourse, you see.
So the Mau Mau's were clearly in that vein, but also maybe not so much. What's often missed about the legacy of black radicalism...
I think there's also a hidden irony in calling them the Mau Maus. The Mau Mau Wars happened in Kenya, which is completely on the other side of Africa, from where West Africa, where like most descendants of slavery can trace their like ancestry via DNA too. Like that well, it's on the complete other side of Africa. So like making like a big thing, and we're like, oh, we're the Mau Maus. Their only connection to them is their melanin. They are not connected culturally. They're not connected like historically. There's something like that. So like the name Mau Mau itself is to imply that they're LARPers.
And the lampooning of it is that black radicalism never died coming out of the 70s. It was just for many.
I only know about the Mau Mau Wars because my friend dated a girl whose grandpa was a general in the Kenyan.
Many years greatly invisibilized, mostly the result of counterintelligence initiatives and the promotion of more moderate and conservative approaches to addressing black issues. I talk about this more in the second Black Conservatives video, but here in Bamboozle, as an adult who's now studied actual black radical politics, I see small elements and details that indicate Spike, who himself is a pretty radical figure in his own right, didn't want to completely shit on black radicalism. So even as Big Black Africa and his group seem silly, if you listen to what they're saying, there's actually some real shit there.
Black, red, green, flag-waving pseudo-revolutionaries.
First, you done messed up the colors first.
What's the colors?
It's red, black, and green. Everybody, white people know it's red, black, and green. So, and secondly,
Black and green.
why we pseudo? If we was talking about some ice and fucking Cristal and pushing Bentleys and fucking popping Mo and all that shit, then we would be the fly shit.
And unlike other silly versus community,
Wait, hold on. That's not a good argument towards. But he said called you a pseudo revolutionary. Nobody calls drug dealers revolutionaries. That's no. I don't remember people calling Frank Lucas a revolutionary. It's or no. What? Where is? Hold on. Real shit check. Somebody show me where the real shit was there, because I don't see it.
Them as radicals are pretty legit. For example, they're named after the Mau Maus. So this is a reference to the Mau Mau rebellion that happened in Kenya in the 1950s. The Mau Maus are legendary and they were one of the most brutal resistance movements in the history of anti-colonial movements. While their violence and brutality might be looked down upon today, and they were inevitably defeated, Kenya still won its independence shortly after they were put down. Another thing is the Mau Mau song that they performed during the audition that's also on the soundtrack. They make reference to Frantz Fanon, a founding figure of black leftist radical thought who also saw violence as an inevitable result of colonization and liberation movements.
It be about the devastation of the social Darwinistic thought. Keep a brown man down sport. They want to keep hiding infections in. Hey, Frantz Fanon put it. Hey, lucky I ain't read Reggie yet.
And that's a name you really wouldn't hear too much as a layman watching this film outside of this film. I know I sure didn't notice it when I watched it when I was younger, but when I rewatched this film recently, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, I know that. That said, I think this is mostly a reach as nobody who doesn't study that.
Fanon's most known for his book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which very explicitly makes fun of people like FD Signifier.
World would catch these references. There's an argument that might say that Spike could only get these types of references in the movie by putting it on this group of buffoonish characters, but it's also just as arguable that he diminishes the value of those references by attaching them to buffoonery. So, you know, you decide that one. But all those references do foreshadow that it was the Mau Mau.
No, okay. I think this is like a fundamental misunderstanding about right-wing radicalism. Is like the idea that real shit and right-wing radicalism are mutually exclusive ideas. They're not. Most lies have a pebble of truth in it that spurs to help the lie. Like let's see, like right-wing Nazis and stuff like that. They have problems with the banks, but we know what they mean when they say that. There are legitimate problems with banks, and that's what like gets people like in the door and stuff like that. A lot of hoteps will say real shit sometimes, but then they will like end it with with the lie. So it's very important to understand that that you know saying real shit while being like insane and stupid, that's a feature, not a bug.
To take direct action to address the harm being done by Delacroix toward the end, but again, that's another thing for later. When the show starts, Delacroix is surprised that there's no real pushback to the overtly offensive things that he's putting on TV. In fact, it's getting rave reviews.
Yo, I just got the news from the CNS brass that was at the tape, and yo, they love the pilot. Yo, we're a mid-season replacement. They ordered 12 shows. We're gonna be on the air in 3 weeks.
But there must be some sort of mistake.
The only mistake is I didn't believe in your genius from the get-go, from Jump Street. Dela, you are the man, bro.
And for a moment, he seems to have a crisis of conscience. Is what he's doing still this elaborate prank? Is he making some grand statement about the nature of racism in the Hollywood business? Or is he just selling out simple and plain? For answers, he visits his father. And in his father, we find the legendary Paul Mooney. And Paul Mooney is basically playing himself. Paul Mooney is incredibly funny, but also crass and outlandish and really inappropriate for a modern era.
White folks want to be black folks. I went to school with white people. Their lips weren't that big. They get stuff in their lips, they take it out their behind, they just do anything to get big lips. Black people been killed on the highway, and they come by, I'll take these. Oh, act black, sound black. I hope they start hanging again. I'm gonna find out who's black.
He was an edgy comedian well before his time, and his unwillingness to play the game and tone down his act is one of the reasons why he barely made any type of mainstream attention for all these years. He was far more successful as a writer.
I met Paul Mooney once. It was fucking sick. He's very, very funny.
For other comedians, propping up careers of guys like Red Fox, Richard Pryor, and even Dave Chappelle.
I liked Mammy though. I thought she was great. I thought she had a great role.
Do you know in real life it was Hattie McDaniels? They wouldn't let Mammy go to the opening. Hollywood, no, Hollywood goes too far. But she's dead. But she's dead. But everybody comes back to get their money. She came back as Oprah Winfrey to get her money.
His conversation with Delacroix typifies the value of his integrity, but also the cost. Mooney's character gets to live a life he finds fulfilling and uncompromising while doing what he loves with people he loves. But his struggle and poverty betrays the consequences of such integrity. Not only does he not have the resources befitting of his talent, he'll also never have the recognition.
How did you end up here?
I got too much pride, too much dignity, integrity. I can't do that Hollywood stuff, man. I can't say that stuff they want me to say.
At the end of their conversation, Delacroix knows that he doesn't want to end up with the same fate.
I will say this. I met Dick Gregory before he died, like way back. And Dick Gregory was a well-known comedian. He was active during the civil rights movement. He had a lot of really good material about race and stuff like that. And he was also incredibly homophobic. Like homophobic, like unpromptedly homophobic. Like we weren't even talking about gay people, and he like went out of his way to express his distaste. So, and I'm seeing that mirrored in Dave Chappelle. I don't know that about Paul Mooney. I assume Paul Mooney is probably pretty based on. I've never seen Paul Mooney miss. Let's put it that way. There might be a clip out there I just haven't seen. But I think overemphasis. I think this is one of the issues why intersectionality is so important, because overemphasis on the issues that only affect you kind of like operate like horse blinders, where you can't being unable to relate to the struggles of other groups actually hurts you, because there's no reason to consider Black liberation and gay liberation as mutually exclusive ideas, especially considering there are Black gay people. I have seen this personally, where people will like pit different oppressions against each other as if like one is getting more favor and stuff like that. And maybe some are, but that should never be a reason to not support it. You can criticize uneven focus, and I think if you are incapable of engaging with things that don't directly affect you, it's very sus. It implies a serious lack of self-awareness to not be able to see the connections between different kinds of oppression.
His father, and from there he decides to double down into the surprising success of his minstrelsy. Delacroix decides that he will do whatever it takes to continue getting a bite at this apple.
Did I want to end up where he was? Hell, emphatically, no.
Sloane, who is no innocent bystander, by the way, notices this. She is finally having misgivings about the whole thing, but she's not in charge, so she's just along for the ride. She gives Delacroix this minstrel piggy bank kind of as a signal as to what's really happening here. This bank is this exaggerated black minstrel figurine with his hand out asking for coins. And if you give him a coin, he does a little trick, and he pops in his mouth and rolls his eyes backward as he eats the coin. And then he holds his hand out for more.
I love these black collectibles.
Really, how so?
It reminds me of a time in our history in this country when we were considered inferior, subhuman, so we should never forget. Don't you try, Pierre?
Yes, why don't I? Give it a whirl.
Something, ain't it?
Sloane's face here in this scene is clearly implying what she's trying to explain to Delacroix, but it's too late. At this point, the awards are coming, the endorsements are coming, he's making money, Mantan and Sleep Anita are making money, he makes a spectacle at himself at an award ceremony, and consistently denies any harm that he's doing.
People who at this point are sick and tired of the TV industry. And there are many in the community at this point who say what they're doing has got to stop now. What do you say about the fact that the line has to be drawn here?
Those people need to wake up I mean, slavery has been over 400 years ago. We need to stop thinking that way. Stop crying over the white man this, the white man that. This is the new millennium, and we must join it.
There's so many warning signs about the harm that's being done here, but nothing seems to work. Even a conversation with his mother isn't enough to snap him out of it. With love and through tears, his mother tells him point blank, a is a
I thought you told me there would be no buffoonery.
Are you going to attack me too? The show is a hit. Why can't you be happy for me?
Of course I'm happy for you, honey.
But a is a
What is a So earlier in the film, Delacroix goes into this strategy meeting where another character, a white character, gives him a playbook of sorts that she called the Mantan Manifesto. This list is one of the reasons why this movie is still so relevant 20 years later. The goal of it was to give Delacroix enough tools and enough ways to spin and avoid criticism from the obvious awfulness that they were doing to make sure that if anybody ever came on the attack, he would know what to say. The Mantan Manifesto reads as follows. 1.
We gainfully employ African Americans in front of and behind the camera.
2.
Let the audience decide.
3.
Who put these critics in charge anyway, right?
Right. 4.
Who determines what is black?
Yeah, what is black?
5.
Mantan is a satire.
6.
If they can't take a joke, you know what? F them.
Yeah, F them.
And 7.
This show was created and conceived by you, right? A non-threatening African-American male. So the show can't be racist because you're black.
This movie came out like 6 years before a certain very prolific black director, billionaire made their first movie. Not that I have anything else negative to say about this person, but
wait, hold on. I'm gonna push back there. Medea, I don't think is very popular with in white media. The majority of people who consume Tyler Perry's content are black. I don't. No, I'm not saying there's no white fans, but the way that Tyler Perry got as famous as he was that he said that these movies are like Christian shit. He marketed them heavily within the black church. So I think it's like weird to like try to make the connection between like what Spike Lee is saying in this movie to Tyler Perry, because Tyler Perry is largely I'm not saying that the Medea movies aren't problematic. They are. I've seen the Boondocks episode. Okay, but like are you reading Theory? Yeah, I'm watching the Boondocks. But the idea, I think this goes more into my idea, like that black people will do it to themselves too, and I think that that's worth exploring. So like I don't know. I don't like the idea that like the reason for Tyler Perry's success is that like he was like good enough for white people. I would be very surprised to learn that even like 3/5 of like the audience aren't just black. Like even fucking Shane Gillis made that joke where he said his racist dad called Hidden Figures Medea Goes to the Moon. Like it's not a fucking no. I'm sorry. Like sorry, you missed here, buddy.
Spike predicted his arrival.
Let me just say this about Spike, anybody else, all the critics, anybody else. You know, it's only black people that do this to each other. I've never seen Jewish people complaining about Seinfeld. I've never seen Italian people complaining about The Sopranos. It's only us as Negroes that do this to each other.
Who determines what is black?
Have always been exactly as they are now. Their behavior and the ways that they defend and avoid accountability for the behavior has never changed. This is the same type of shit that Terry Crews said when people looked at him funny for numerous weird takes a few years back. You can hear the Mantan Manifesto in the rants of Kanye West and the arguments of Candace Owens or Charleston White. And I bet that dancing watermelon dude that called himself the grooving gorilla pulled a few of these talking points out as well.
Have you ever caught backlash from your name?
Yes, all the time. Everybody just like, you know, the history of it. But I'm like, look, you guys need to understand that like you can't just make it about that. Like I'm literally just like, I love gorillas and I dance. And if you guys are making it more than it is, it's just like, it doesn't have to be that. You know what I mean? Like, yes, like the history, the past of people calling us gorillas or monkeys. Yes, I understand.
Yeah, this dude.
This is the future. Let's
I'm sorry. This dude knows exactly what he's doing. Even I don't. I eat watermelon slices just so nobody can accuse me. Sorry.
You know, move.
Slicing watermelon off on a knife and eating it this way so nobody thinks I'm being racist.
Forward into a new generation and just like vibe and just put positive energy out there. Like I just don't see it like it has to be offensive. I'm calling myself that. I'm not like trying to put it towards anyone else. I'm calling it because I embrace it. Like, you know, it's me.
Yeah.
So. Slavery has been over 400 years ago. We need to stop thinking that way. Stop crying over the white man this, the white man that. This is the new millennium, and we must join it.
And if you happen to be here to see if I'm going to say something about various figures who may have made some videos or tweets angry about me and my peers, casting judgment on their behavior, if you go back and look at those, you'll see some of the same arguments. Notice, never actually explain or argue how what they did wasn't some shit. It's always, well, who made you king of the blacks, FD?
No. There have definitely been people explicitly saying that they aren't doing this, specifically explaining how what they are, their stuff is not coon shit. You just refuse to listen to them. You literally refuse to listen to black people. All right.
Signifier. Why do you think all black people should think alike? Is a racist slur. Is it?
Yes, it is. That's why you are fucking self-censoring it right now. You fucking retard. Like I'm sorry. No, I guarantee. Okay. If any of you want to find out if coon's a slur, go up to a black person and call them that and tell me what happens. Okay, it is. There's no community in the United States where calling someone a coon out of nowhere, especially, look, it is an insult. That's why people use it. It is perfectly a slur. It's the question is whether we're using it correctly. Using it on Candace Owens, I don't give a fuck. Use it on Jesse Lee Peterson, I don't give a fuck. But the second you start using it on Shark just because he disagrees with you on race mixing and shit like that, then you're just calling them a race traitor for being okay with multiculturalism. That's like complete separation here, okay? FD Signifier is fucking shadowboxing.
Or are you, if you Google the history of the term and click on literally the very first link and do no other research because you're lazy or not as smart as you and your fans think you are, you might get the idea that the term only
not help. YouTube won't allow you to see. So here's a giant.
Exists as a pejorative term used against black people by white people connected to these racist caricatures from minstrelsy. Or at least that's what the Jim Crow Museum might indicate to you. But if you actually know how to do real research and maybe go through the hard work to go to like literally
he's literally
very next Google entry, you might find an article that leads you on a long journey into the history of this word. So
wait, he literally did. Wait, so he is he saying like the Jim Crow Museum is lying? Is that what he's saying? I didn't think this would be as bad as it is. Like, I like FD Signifier is just a guy. You need to understand that. Like, I don't know what his education is, stuff like that. But when like one person will make sweeping statements against like an organization as probably, like, I'm gonna assume the Jim Crow Museum probably is woke on black issues. I don't know. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're just all secret black racists who want to keep the black man down. Who knows? But like the idea that if he goes to just the second entry, like, well, the first one didn't agree with me, but the second one did, which kind of highlights the issue with search-based queries in terms of like he basically just the fucking information from the Jim Crow Museum fell off his head like water off a fucking duck. But then he goes to the second one. Oh, well, this affirms what I said, so I'm going to put this in my video. I'm not even saying the second one doesn't have some true shit in it, but if you're just disregarding the Jim Crow Museum, maybe it's time to reflect a little. This is legitimately making me mad. Like this is what I fucking hate so much about a lot of radical groups and something like that. They will pretend like they speak for the entire group. Like they will say black people don't like you when they really mean just them and their friends.
Word obviously start with raccoons, right? Like hopefully people get that the sound effect is a raccoon sound. Anyway, raccoons were a readily accessible and cheap form of meat historically in the United States, but specifically for black slaves, it was maybe some of the best meat they can get because they were allowed to hunt and eat them freely on larger plantations. Over time, this caused raccoon meat to be stigmatized as being meat for poor black slaves, and at some point, this negative attachment manifests itself into a.
I thought the word coon came from the minstrel character Zip Coon, right? Like, isn't that where that's from? I don't know. I was when I did research into the subject, I initially thought it was a raccoon thing, and then people were like, no, it's a character. It could be multiple things, but we'll see.
Minstrel character named Zip, first embodied by white men.
Yeah, like don't pretend like it's not a slur. It just stand on business. If it's just say it with your chest. Karen's a slur. I'll say that shit all day. I don't care. It's you have to talk about what the actual the ideas behind what you're trying to convey is. You don't get to say like, "Oh, it's not a slur." Yes, it is. Just be honest about it.
George Washington Dixon and his song Zip.
Oh, yeah, he brought up the person.
From there, the character is definitely enshrined into minstrel history that you can find in the Jim Crow Museum, and his caricature is used as a derogatory term toward poor and enslaved black people by white people. That much is true. But from there, the word eventually takes on a new purpose, as many words tend to do historically, especially in black American culture. So the word has been irrevocably attached to these harmful stereotypical images of black people, images that black people were not responsible for creating, but suffer the consequences of. And once again, understand that minstrel actors were sometimes black, and recall again the story of Stepin Fetchit. So these images that were very harmful and hurtful to black Americans, that reinforce stereotypes that were often used to validate mistreatment of black people, were also promoted and supported by black actors that were just being paid to play their part. Regardless of the intent, those black actors were still partially responsible for that. And they should have known better, because while the white actors could take off their shoe polish makeup and re-enter the white world, the black actors could not remove their skin. They had to continue to live on as black people, suffering from the very stereotypes they helped spread. And many often, despite nominal wealth, were required to remain living in black communities where they were probably somewhat ostracized. These communities did not turn a blind eye or forget how these individuals behaved and how their actions hurt other black people. Thus, within those communities, these minstrel actors, or moreover, black people that embodied that minstrel aesthetic and ideology by trying to ingratiate themselves to white people at the expense of black people, were often forced to carry the names of these characters. The Sambo, the Mammy, the Uncle Tom, and of course, the... What I hope is clear here is that the way is used by black people in black spaces right now is not as a slur. Is a label.
Yes, it is. Yeah, yes, it is. As a black person in black spaces, yeah, it is. I'm sorry. Maybe there's some weird group of ivory tower intellectual is that all like meet up because they all went to college together and stuff like that. That don't consider it like some kind of slur or whatever. But the vast majority of I can call my grandpa right now and ask. I can call my dad and ask. I could call my uncles and ask. Yeah, no, all of them would beat the shit out of me if I called them that. Even my grandpa, who he's in his 70s, he would still probably attempt to roundhouse me if I ever fucking called him that. So like the idea that it's not a slur is just stupid.
What is his prerogative to conclude? I'm not too on writing on the situation. I don't know exactly what they're trying to do.
A white woman at the next table saying, look, there's OJ sitting with all those. And I remember in my naivete saying to OJ, wow, that was terrible for you. She said, no, it was great. Don't you understand? She knew that I wasn't black. She saw me as OJ. And really, at that moment, I thought he was fucked.
Along with Uncle Tom and all those other terms, has for longer than not been used.
Yeah, OJ definitely tried to lean in to the whole I'm not black, I'm OJ. There was people kind of like I think few people kind of there. Some people will say that race relations were better in the 90s and 2000s, or like 80s, 90s, 2000s, and they weren't. But the appearance, in the average person, was that they were, and that was largely an information thing. Okay, it's not an accident that Black Lives Matter and like the advent of the smartphone are pretty linked together. All right, Rodney King was notable by because it was a representation of what like a lot of black people already knew, but they just like finally had proof on camera because like people didn't have cameras in their phones back in the 90s, but now they do. And then in the advent of that, you just see so much more coverage and stuff like that. So the perception of racism was worse in the 80s and 90s, while it was still probably worse then, and I mean still bad now, but it was probably worse when there was less like avenues for accountability via like at least just filming the shit. The idea that a lot of people will talk about, like OJ was also victim to those perceptions, and there was a like rugged individualism that people wanted, where like I don't want to be black first, I want to be me first and then black second, which I think I can understand. I don't I personally would prefer to be talked to on like the basis of like who I am and not what I am. I think that's a very normal human response to like that, like, if everybody just like every single conversation I have has to do with my race, I kind of don't want to be there. Like that's just weird to me. I want if there's a reason to talk about the race, I can. I'm obviously not shrinking from it. I'm fucking covering this video, but I do I can empathize with wanting to be more individual. I just in a context where I perceive like if their racism wasn't the problem that it was, race would obviously matter less. And I think that's an aspiration, but to like pretend like that's the case is ridiculous. Does that make sense to anybody what I'm saying here? I'm not trying to be too rambly or nitpicky.
To identify and sanction black people doing the bidding of white supremacy. There has never been a shortage of black people since slavery, more than willing to sell out their blackness and do harm to other black people for the approval of white people, whether it be those who peddle harmful images for the entertainment of whites.
That's also true for like worker and bourgeois thing like that. This is not like specifically in racism, but the idea of groups of a class willing to sell out their class in order to ascend. That's not a completely like that's not just a black person thing. That is anytime there are two groups and one is higher, groups of the lower one will sell out the rest to get just half as much higher. That will always happen. So like I think this is just a failure of intersectionality.
Or exploiting other blacks for their own personal gain. This is nothing new. And it's also not new that these types of folks have always been met by ostracism and ridicule and criticism. And this is not like some practice unique by black people. Most any niche or oppressed group, whether it be women coming up with the term pick me, skaters and punks using the term poser, unionized workers coming up with the term scab, or black people coming up with the term
okay, he's making the point that I'm making.
Unity among themselves will create terms to ostracise those who refuse to get in line and fit in. Black people are not unique in this behavior. We just, as usual, get extra
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, just the framing and everything I know about you, FD Signifier, made me think that you made me think that because it's I when you're calling Shark a slur for being pro race mixing, being like it's no morally neutral, whatever. I think you've lost the plot a little. I want to like FD Signifier. I think he has a lot of interesting things to say, but the worst thing about him, it isn't like his logic, it's that he's petty and he gets mad. And when you get mad, your IQ drops. That's a measurable thing you can learn. And it makes that's why having derangement syndrome around you is actually a plus. Hot take, okay? Keffels, Vosh, FD Signifier to an extent, anybody that has a big platform to the point that they have haters are an asset because they are all so mad at you that all of their arguments towards you are going to be dumber than the people who just disagree with you but don't hate you. So you can, instead of talking to the people that just disagree with you but don't hate you because they don't even know you enough to hate you, you have to have a level of parasociality to hate. So I don't hate anyone really. You can just focus on the dumb arguments that are being thrown at you and then never have to address just the disagreement. And that's exactly what FD Signifier is doing. He is conflating like all these different people and then sliding in someone that's probably to the left of him just for disagreeing. It's I don't know if it's conscious. I don't know if he's just being bad faith or he could this I see a world where it's literally somebody thinking they're doing the right thing but just being wrong. But I also see a possibility where he's just being dishonest trying to keep his media career.
He states the following in his book, In Defense of Uncle Tom, Why Blacks Must Police Race Loyalty.
If large percentages of blacks reason that racial progress requires solidarity, impeders of that solidarity would naturally be ostracized. Again, social science literature supports this point. Psychologists report that low-status groups clean deviants out of their own nest before contesting their subordination. Deviants are low-status group members shunned for preventing improvement in the group status by blocking the in-group's attempt to bring about social change. Deviants violate group social norms and are consequently sanctioned. By ensuring that their ranks are deviant-free, subordinate groups prepare for the intergroup conflict.
Stokely draws a straight line
Okay,
from the depictions of
I
blacks.
don't have a problem with the policing. I have a problem with what's being policed. That I think most people need to understand that.
And minstrels to the prominent uses of the word today in common black parlance. The point of the label is to be a form of protection by way of social sanction, ridicule, and likely exclusion from predominantly black spaces, as well as a concerted support from black people. Stokely cites athletes, politicians, and entertainers who have lost favor of black people and suffer because of such labels. However, this book was actually specific to the term Uncle Tom, which is somewhat interchangeable with although I'd argue that is worse, but we're getting into semantics. Either way, Stokely still evokes the same argument around the use of the word. Stokely presents a, I would say, even-keeled analysis of the word, and although there's a lot of stuff in it I don't agree with, he narrowly does two things. One, he effectively documents how these types of terms came into being and doesn't at all bother engaging with the idea that they act as slurs in any meaningful way. And two, he endorses the belief that the use of these words is an important tool that black people have to protect themselves and address their socio-political needs.
Black folk have group interests, an opposition to white supremacy, a desire to secure happiness in a world where anti-black racism dedicates itself to deny life's joys. Epithets such as instill interracial discipline. They teach individual black folk that certain behaviors that damage the group's interests will not be tolerated and will incur penalties.
Okay. I don't disagree with this. What I disagree with is the behaviors that are being policed. If somebody is, running defense for like Derek Chauvin and saying that like Candace Owen has, or they are pandering to the caricature of what black people are in the white mind, I agree with using the term there and stuff like that. But the discipline sometimes reaches over into conservative areas where people are unironically anti-race mixing, think that like you can't even be around white people, I like those types of people will always always attract black people who have prejudice in their hearts because they know they can get away with it more in that group. I think that the prejudice needs to be policed because it shows that they don't understand that the power structure that is actually oppressing them. It is not purely just a white power structure. It's also a capitalist power structure, and it enables black capitalists to exploit your often completely legitimate grievances and be redirected into supporting the same system that you supposedly hate. So in order to make the discipline work, there needs to be a critical thought involved in exactly what is the main enemy, because the main enemy of black people is not white people. It is capitalists of all colors, because there's plenty of white people that are anti-capitalist and will have solidarity with you, and there's lots of black people who won't. And I think that's why this fight needs to be racist versus anti-racist, not black versus white. It's not just wrong; it's a mistake tactically to not want to ingratiate as many people as possible into your movement for the explicit liberation of all.
Who work on behalf of white supremacy deserve criticism, but that doesn't strip them of their blackness. Yes, being called a tends to wound the spirit, but black folk must be allowed to protect themselves against members who sabotage the race's well-being.
And I want to be clear, I didn't need to look up this fucking book. Like, like this is for a select few motherfuckers watching this video. The very idea that I'm explaining to non-black people why the word
Bro, I need FD Signifier to show his analytics right now, because I will eat my shoes like I'm Gale from Baldur's Gate 3 if the majority of his audience isn't white. FD Signifier, your audience is white, okay? You need to understand that. FD Signifier exists purely as the black left tuber that want to be racially conscious white people go to listen to as an authority on black issues, so that they feel like they can talk down to like other white people or black people that disagree with you.
It's not a slur, and that if your friend, your black friend, gets called it's probably not by accident. Motherfuckers aren't just being mean. We're making a fucking point.
No, there are people that are just being mean. Okay, I'm sorry. Your own mod called me a fucking octoroon for being pro-race mixing, okay? Fuck off.
This is just as dumb as explaining why white people can't say the N-word, but there's also white folks that don't get that. So of course there will be some that don't like what I'm saying here. So if you don't like what I'm saying, you can go read this book. The book is as fair and like nice about the concept as you could ask for. You might even find
like, no, I understand it. I just think that FD Signifier is more of a coon than I am, because he is pandering to white leftists explicitly. You know, there is no. I'm sorry, to treat the issue of race of like. One, I think the over fixation on coons is kind of misguided. I think most of the fixation is from a sense of betrayal, which I understand and stuff like that. But have your fucking priorities straight. Sambo isn't the reason that we didn't have law. My grandfather had to drink from a different drinking fountain. Okay, the reason was white people paying Sambo. Okay, the white people that paid Sambo. You can criticize them and stuff like that, but the overemphasis on black people is kind of weird, especially since I guarantee you a lot of people in this sphere will say that black people are incapable of racism. To my response is, how do you, if black people are incapable of true institutional racism, then what the fuck is this video? Because it is black people perpetuating institutional racism against other black people. If you want to say that it's hard to be racist against white people, I would say, yeah, pretty hard. I'm sure somebody could figure it out, but on an institutional level or whatever, I'm sure some policy smith could figure out a way to do it. They're not, but it's vaguely possible. To say that Clarence Thomas isn't capable of institutional racism when he is literally a black Supreme Court justice who is voting to disenfranchise voting from black people with the way he rules is just it has no materialist perspective whatsoever. It's you need to have multiple perspectives in order to get even near the truth. You will never get the truth from just one perspective.
A decent enough argument to defend your favorite streamer or video essayist or commentary YouTuber from being called, but you'll at least understand that the shit is not a slur. Anyway,
I'm sorry. It is. I will literally film myself going up to random black people and calling them, and then watching them punch me in the face if that's what it takes to prove to you fucking people. Do not get too comfortable with calling. I'm sorry. Like there is a suburban black child watching FD Signifier right now who's about to get the shit kicked out of him next week because he's gonna go and call someone a coon because they said that because they have like a white girlfriend or something, and it'll be rightly so, but it will be this man's fault.
He presents a relatively compelling argument about the fact that maybe is used too frivolously to critique other black people. And he also provides what I think is a really useful definition to explain that when we're talking about we're not just talking about a black person that doesn't do exactly what other black people do or is into things that are not traditionally attached to black culture. Stokey points out that being not politically inclined or not wanting to really engage with black politics is not something that should make someone and believe it or not, that's something I actually believe. But what he does point out is that when you operate in the space of politics as a black person, your blackness can give you a lot of cachet around black issues. And the favorite trick of the is to use their blackness to shield their white friends and benefactors from accusations and telling criticisms of racism or discrimination.
Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to testify. I want to testify just as a black American today, and I want to first start off by saying that white supremacy is indeed real, but despite the media's obsessive coverage of it, it represents an isolated, uncoordinated, and fringe occurrence within America.
And in those cases, being labeled a cool identify why that's some bullshit and lets other black people know what type of person we're dealing with under the circumstance. And of course, that's when they come back with, we're not monolith. Why do all black people have to think?
No, Max, I'm not going to go call random people coons. That was a joke. No. Max, no.
They're not speaking to the fact that maybe they're just defending a racist. This is why the aforementioned Mantan Manifesto is such a profound thing. The Mantan Manifesto provides useful, though very shallow responses to all the criticisms that might face they'll complain that you're trying to take their blackness instead of engaging with why they're being called out.
But when you just...
I've engaged. I'm very good at engaging. Hit me up. We can engage all day. I'll engage all over you, baby.
take away my black card and say that I'm not black anymore, and you don't even want to discuss it with me. You just want to say that white people have brainwashed me. That's where I really have an issue.
And it's bullshit because...
Well, I mean, I will say that there are legitimately black conservatives that like believe what they're saying. I don't know specifically that person, but there definitely are like black people who have drinking the conservative Kool-Aid pretty fucking hard. And there are like people will just call them a coon and then or like race traitor or whatever, and then not explain, and they will like use that victimization as like further reasons to entrench themselves in where they already are. Like, oh, they're the real racist. I think you can engage with conservative like black people in a way that makes them understand. Okay, I think I think there are more people politically radicalized by bad arguments from correct people than bad arguments, but then good arguments by incorrect people. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Like, I think you see this a lot, like with people saying they want to like go on an anti-left arc because there's a bunch of leftists being stupid about the Houthis, which I agree they're being stupid about the Houthis, but that shouldn't really be your like uh that doesn't make me not a leftist just because I disagree with them. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people need to police the derangement syndrome in their own head. Yeah, Max, it says your grandpa's a black Republican, but he refuses to vote for Trump or vote Republican lately because he says they're too racist. Yeah, there is a tradition of black conservatism that is like that isn't purely pandering to white people. Okay, I think like I'm pretty sure FD Signifier has gone over this. There are like actual black conservatives that that sincerely believe what they're saying, and then there's Candace Owens. Candace Owens doesn't believe what she said.
Calling someone a doesn't mean they're not black. In fact, you can't be a if you're not black. The point is to address the harm that's being done and put a stop to it.
Yeah, that's not why people have a problem with it. They have a problem because you're calling them a race traitor.
And I don't begrudge the fact that some black people feel stifled and frustrated by this dynamic. It can feel draconian, but if you're doing active harm, people will respond accordingly.
Okay, demonstrate the act of harm then.
Say your white friend does some racist shit and you defend them, maybe even join in calling people niggeritas, and then subsequently get called for your behavior. It's not your blackness.
I'm sorry. The people were talking about he was making fun of people who were policing race mixing. That's why that he said that. That's fine. Also, he's black. He's allowed to say that.
That's getting police. It's your anti-blackness that's getting police. But I get it. No one likes to be criticized.
Wait, hold on. Like I actually haven't watched this.
I'm frustrated by this.
What?
I'm frustrated by this dynamic. It can feel draconian.
Wait, hold on. I haven't watched this show. Is that Bel Air? Is that what this is? Okay.
Accordingly. When say you're white for your behavior, it's not.
I don't know the context of the show, but all I'm seeing is this guy being mad that he's like dancing with that's a Hispanic man right there. I'm pretty sure, unless the lighting is bad. So like a bunch of kids dancing together. I would need more context to know why he's like why this is like bad. Like is it because they're all singing Bobby Shmurda, and he's not correcting the white people who are saying hot nigga. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's coonery. Oh, okay. It's not Bobby Shmurda. I thought that was Bobby Shmurda. I have it on 0.5.
But I get it.
No, there was a Bel Air remake. Max.
No one likes to be criticized, and is such
I also could be wrong. It could not be Bel Air. I just I thought that the Southern California and video style looked a lot like that. I could be totally wrong.
And so that it stings, especially if it's true. Further, as you see with figures like Candace Owens, Charleston White, Thomas Sowell.
I only know about it because my grandparents watch it.
Jesse Lee Peterson, etc., can be quite lucrative. And this is why Delacroix doesn't seem hurt by his mother's words. It doesn't change anything.
Fearless?
Yes.
You disappoint me.
Yes, well, I have to go now. The hell are you smiling at?
And that begs another question, actually. Despite knowing of his father's disapproval and his mother's shame, as well as growing resistance and criticism publicly and privately, Delacroix continues on the minstrel show path, and it's just doing numbers. It has a huge audience, a black and white audience. People start showing up to recordings of the show in blackface. Ratings are through the roof. Delacroix receives a reward for his work, and in his own words, knowingly plays the grateful Negro, knowing that it will guarantee him work opportunities in the future.
If I did that, I'd be assured of work forever. Delacroix, the grateful Negro.
Delacroix doesn't say a lot in the latter half of the film. He kind of becomes a passenger in the movie's plot in a way that I don't think is accidental, because it symbolizes how being co-opted and selling out isn't this instantaneous thing most of the time. I think when we imagine what it looks like to sell out, that there's this meeting that you go to and a bunch of old white men in suits come and like open up the golden suitcase and say, you know, do this sellout shit. But in reality, it's much slower. It's a compromise here, a decision not to speak up there, and suddenly you're rationalizing egregious behavior you've never have thought possible previously. We see Delacroix's office becoming
rationalizing egregious behavior, like calling a black man a coon because he argued that race makes him fine. Okay.
more and more inundated with images of minstrelsy. He starts hallucinating about the piggy bank as it reflects his own reality of holding his hand out for money and doing a little trick when he gets it. And it's no surprise that other cracks start to show in their whole program. The first person to defect is Womack, aka Sleep and Eat, leaving after having had enough of the as is typical of how black people of lower statuses are exploited by the black elite and petite bourgeois. Womack feels the brunt of what is happening. There is no cognitive dissonance, no Mantan manifesto, no awards to help him. He's the one that has to put on the black makeup and dance and sing, so he's also the first one to get fed up.
Yes, sir. What you want me to do now, sir? Anything for you, sir. I'll sing for you.
I don't even have it yet, Saliva. Jesus Christ. I'm trying to strum.
I tap dance for you now, sir.
His departure creates a rift between Mantan, Sloan, and Delacroix. Mantan and Sloan had begun a romantic relationship, and Sloan was trying to maybe sow a few seeds for things to eventually change. In response to this, Delacroix reveals that he and Sloan had a relationship at a previous time to Mantan. This leads to Mantan also eventually defecting before making a spectacle of himself at the final showing. This scene is really powerful, and it starts with first this like long, drawn out, and gut-wrenching montage of all these people in the crowd, all in blackface, just doing the most stereotypical, awful shit that they perceive of black people. Honeycutt, a recurring character that plays basically the MC during the show, works the crowd asking everyone, are you a
Yes, sir, Bob. Don Tottenham.
The crowd joyfully participates, illustrating this Fanonian, Afro-pessimistic concept that blackness isn't a distinction made of people, but a condition of being that is assigned to a person, or once they become black, a non-person. But, you know, shout out to Philosophe Noir to get more details on that. And after this is all over, Man Ray comes out without his makeup and without his costume and delivers a soliloquy that is similar to one he did in the film, except the earlier soliloquy is from the perspective of people perceiving the behavior of black people judgmentally, and then this version at the end is from the actual perspective of black people.
I am sick and tired of being a and I am not gonna take it anymore. Sick and tired of being.
And it's meant to illustrate this point of the black struggle regardless of what position you're in. When Mantan finishes his soliloquy, he starts dancing again, but it's not the showy, buffoonish tap dancing that he's done the entire time. It's a much more angry and like uncontrollable dance that Savion Glover, the actor that played Man Ray, is known for. And he refuses to stop doing it until he's eventually forced off stage by security.
Get him out of the building. Get off, stop dancing. Oh, stop dancing.
In this quick moment, Dunwoody delivers a really powerful point that if you're not thinking about it and paying attention, you won't even notice regarding the nature of which is that you're on a really short rope and you're easily replaced.
You're done. You see, niggas like you are a dime a dozen. You think you're special? I'm gonna just slide Honeycutt right into your spot, you fake ass tap dance kid. Get him out of the building.
And if you in any way try to skirt the boundaries or step out of line, you will be replaced. After being thrown out of the building, Mantan
this is completely true. Aaron Magruder is a good example. I know he like left, but there's a lot of people that you know, they wanted to make something a little more radical, a little less, you know, palatable to the main. Oh fuck me! God damn it.
Done by the show. There's clear.
Get him out of the building.
Okay, we're back. We're so back.
Stop dancing.
In this quick moment, Dunwoody delivers a really powerful point that if you're not thinking about it and paying attention, you won't even notice regarding the nature of which is that you're on a really short rope and you're easily replaced.
You're done. You see, niggas like you are a dime a dozen. You think you're special? I'm gonna just slide Honeycutt right into your spot, you fake ass tap dance kid. Get him out of the building.
And if you in any way try to skirt the boundaries or step out of line, you will be replaced. After being thrown out of the building, Mantan doesn't make it far. He is.
I mean, this is also true for like entertainment in general. That the entertainment is poisoned by the fact that the top priority is money and not art. Okay, that's always going to be the fact. Whether no matter what kind of radicalism you have, if it's outside of consumer demand, you will be replaced. That goes for race issues, it goes for class issues, it goes for gay issues, it goes for any type of
Quickly kidnapped by the Mau Mau's, and true to their namesake, the Mau Mau's murder Mantan on national TV. After which they are then themselves killed by police officers. All except 1/16 black played by MC Search, who is actually not 1/16 black, or I don't know, he might be, I don't know. He's definitely Jewish. I'm not quite sure. But he offers this last parting shot, speaking to the fact that he was not shot by the police, lamenting being denied his blackness by the only real authority that can decide who is and who isn't black, the police.
You should have fucking killed me. All it takes is one fucking drop of black blood, motherfucker. You're black! You're black! Fuck off!
Immediately after all of this, Delacroix is in his office drunk and mourning, and inexplicably suddenly has a blackface mask of his own. Sloan comes to his office and confronts him with the gun for his role in the tragedy, which results in her shooting him. But in his final moments, he consoles her and sets to make the shooting look like a suicide before laying down to die. All of this is followed by a pretty long montage of minstrel images before we return to Delacroix one more time, where he delivers a line to keep him laughing, accompanied by a sweaty-faced Mantan in full makeup for the camera. The end is dark and complex and delivers a few important points, but there's one thing about it that always bothered me. Why didn't the Mau Mau's kill Dunwoody instead? Why did they kill Man Ray, who from all critical angles is the least empowered and least responsible person for all the harm being done by the show?
the point I made earlier, coming back to haunt me.
There's clear explanations of this, of course. The Mau Mau's pointed their ire at the most visible symbol of the king, and by killing him, they send maybe the most widely impactful message. They probably don't know who Dunwoody is, as most of us seldom actually know the man behind the curtain. Also, even though this movie was mostly independently made, I doubt Spike Lee could have gotten it fully finished if he depicted a brash group of black revolutionaries as capable of murdering a white character played by a Jewish man. So, considering Spike's own brushes with accusations of anti-Semitism, that would have been a very bad decision. But still, this outcome frustrates me. A little while back, in the middle of all this drama with certain black YouTubers, I made a video called The Fly in the Milk Experience, and it was a call-in show discussing what it means to be a fly in the milk, aka a black person, usually a young person, that has to grow up in an environment where they're surrounded by whiteness.
This is the stream where I was called an octoroon for disagreeing. No, I don't think that octoroon is a slur. It's just a very old-timey term for somebody that's like 1/8 black. But it was weird. I will say that I'm around a lot of different types of people all the time, and the only time I've really dealt with somebody this one weird girl I knew. She was college educated and stuff like that. She went to like some super white school up in the Northeast, and I told her that my about a mutual friend we know, and then I was like, yeah, his kid, he had a kid with his kid, her kid, so he had a baby with a mixed girl. So yeah, his daughter's like 1/4 black or whatever, but she's white passing. And she literally stops and goes, "She's a quadroon?" And I'm like, I remember just being like really weirded out by it. Just be like, I think that there is a problem in black academia of being a little too comfortable with saying weird shit, as evidenced by this video.
It's just weird for me because I thought I would kind of find a place where I belong, but I did not belong because I was not raised like them. The culture was extremely different than what I thought I knew about black people, which was not that.
I wanted to call in and they wouldn't let me. They refused to listen to black and Mexican voices.
It's an experience that happens to a lot of black people. A lot of young black people are going through it right now, and it can leave them scarred in unique ways that are often not discussed.
I will say, I understand being the like one of the few non-white kids in a predominantly white area. I spent half my time at a city school, and then I spent half the time at a suburban school. I recognize, I intimately know the difference. Okay, I literally beat up a kid for calling me the N word before. All right? I did that in like what had to be like 9th, 10th grade or something like that. The white school thing. There is definitely a complex that happens when you are like the only like one of the very few group of people in the thing. It does feel weird. There's certain complexes that you can have, but luckily I also had the on the other coin experience where race was less of a factor because it was a predominantly non-white school. And like I was talking about this the other night. One of the like things I noticed immediately was more people flirted with me at the non-white school than at the white school. it seems kind of like a dumb thing to bring up, but I did notice like a stark difference in being like in just like attention from women. That because anytime there is a less, not saying I don't do well with white, I do well with Rizzler. No, I will say that there is if the more heterogeneous or color a group is, I get more attention. And I think a lot of it has to do with when you're in like segregated environments, a lot of them like don't know enough mixed people to be able to like point it like oh that guy's mixed or something like that. So they just think that like mixed people look weird. Like the girl I dated for the longest, she was a mixed girl that grew up in the same kind of like very white area and stuff like that. And she people would treat her weird because they just like didn't understand the concept of like somebody with light skin having black features and stuff like that. So people like would treat her weird. I didn't treat her weird because I knew she was mixed immediately. I was like, oh, what's up? Hey. But I think that there's a lot of different factors and that you can you can if you're growing up in a place where you're the only like representative of something, you can it's not a lot of good complexes can come out of that. I'm not saying it's impossible to go have a good experience and just being the one different person or something like that, but there needs to be you know, there's just different challenges that await for you, put it that way.
Because this experience isn't very much in the main umbrella of black experiences, so it doesn't quite get the attention.
And I think that complex is drives a lot of this. I think a lot of it is black people going to overly white institutions, college wise or whatever, or maybe they came from the suburbs or whatever. And I feel like a lot of the, I'm just being real, a lot of these people are just like overcompensating.
And the goal was to talk and unpack this experience to consider how to address
And
it.
the reason I know that is because they say stupid shit like "coon isn't a slur."
Because the education system, I was put into a different class essentially. Because of that, I've been around whiteness so much. I've been called one of the good ones, like, oh, you're so articulate, yada yada yada.
Oh,
So
hey, my
that
point
pressure
being
from
made
white
for me.
people, but honestly, it's been a lot of pressure for like black people too. You act white, you're an Oreo, you're a type thing. Being called by black people around who I was trying so desperately to fit in with, I was trying to like be.
Yeah, really, I was never really called like an Oreo or like white or anything like that. Not that, and I was like, I've had lots of different interests, like not, I don't know, I just, I'm not gonna say I had white interest because I refuse to say that like rock is a white interest because it's very much not. Um, like Prince is the reason that I like guitar, but I also like Jack White. You know, I like everyone. Um, but I still never really got called like white acting until I started talking on Twitter about being okay with race mixing by people in this man's sphere, which I think is bad and it's indicative of some very reactionary beliefs being perpetuated in this echo chamber.
Be a part of the community. It didn't make me feel any more black. It made me feel like, oh, I'm black, but I'm another type of black. It was an othering of my black experience.
For some of these kids, it's genuinely between a rock and a hard place. The trite phrase, too black for the white kids and too white for the black kids. Now, of course, there's levels to this shit. Anti-blackness is real, and depending on how you might have been raised, you might have a lot more anti-black sentiment in you that you aren't even aware of until you say the wrong thing in a black space and get ostracized.
Like, one of the like things I think that differentiates me from a lot of other mixed kids is that just in my personal experience, my black side of my family, I associated more with stability. Because like my grandparents, they've been married the whole time, they've lived in the same house, they've not had to deal with the craziness and stuff like that. Um, to they've not had to deal with that craziness before. My white side is far more chaotic than my black side is. Not to say there ain't problems on my black side, there are, but I associate my black side of my family with stability, wealth, and education. And that's why I think I've never really I think that's one of the main things that saved me from having a complex about it is that like if I didn't know anything about statistics and sociology and history and stuff like that, I very easily could be like just like it wouldn't be hard for someone who had my like life experience but none of the educational experience to think that like black people can do fine because my grandparents have and stuff like that. But a lot of mixed kids will develop a complex because historically speaking, you know, like a lot of mixed kids, their white side is the side that they associate with wealth, stability, and all the stuff that I associate with my black side of the family. So I think that that's what's kind of like like I don't want to say saved me, but like that's what's made me not have the complex that he is talking about.
Further, I'd argue that the experience of being a token, a fly in the milk, desensitizes you to the harm you experience daily, meaning that you'll probably have a very different gauge of what harm has been done to you and what harm you might do to others. If you grew up around white kids that watched iDubbbz and PewDiePie, you might think that certain type of jokes are funny.
For any of you who think me and my subscribers are a bunch of savages, just get a load at how perfectly the word is written in this letter. That's right, a savage couldn't write that well.
But you say that shit around the wrong cousins, you might get called from the perspective of a person going through that. I can see how this could feel incredibly cruel, because not only do they likely not know any better, they don't even know what they don't know. But at the same time, I don't blame other black folks on how to respond to perceived threats in this context. Are toxic on a variety of levels, and we're hypervigilant for a good reason. But that hypervigilance doesn't help address the actual problems. And in reality, it's almost this very Carlson mentality that we don't check in these cases. When I look sometimes at the way that black folks ostracize other black folks that maybe have been guilty of, I can't help but think that the response is sometimes a little bit overboard and not recognize that an overboard response to that is also itself rooted in anti-blackness. Here's where Stokey, I think, provides a useful criticism that I don't fully agree with, but I think it's important to engage with.
The third period of Uncle Tom's use, marked by destructive loyalty policing, must end. A fourth period must supplant it, one where supporting evidence always accompanies accusations of betrayal.
Oh wow, just completely destroying your whole video with one sentence. That's
The days when blacks are deemed sellouts merely for being conservative, for disagreeing with majority thought, or for otherwise being outside the mainstream, must cease. Some will contend that the preceding chapters, littered with persons wrongly pained by Uncle Tom wounds, demonstrate that blacks must put down the epithet as one would an uncontrollable beast. It is too wild and dangerous. Careful minds will aver. To advocate for jettisoning the imposition of interracial discipline, however, is to promote an idea that would never come to fruition, but harm the black community if it somehow did. Blacks benefit enormously when race members appreciate that to betray the race is to summon rhetorical punishment. But moving forward, blacks need to have confidence that racial loyalty enforcers will apply norms judiciously.
And this is why I don't fully rock with the Mau Mau's here. I feel like their outrage at another black person transgressing so grievously, they made them lose track of what their real goals were. In a way, they fell for the bait. Not only was Mantan not in control of the whole show, he was by far the least empowered person in the equation. All he wanted to do was get off the streets. That show will probably be back on TV in a month or two, and all the Mau Mau's except for one are dead. And are a problem. But that problem isn't born out of the ether. It's a byproduct of certain black folks trying to survive white supremacy that maybe have weaker constitutions or no shame and will gladly if it means they can get ahead. It's important to address this type of behavior, if not just to keep it from spreading, but the bigger emphasis should always be on the structure that incentivizes. Moreover, for those youth who don't even know that's what they're doing, if they're open to correction, they just need support and guidance. But I feel like the Carlson...
I maybe I need more context for a lot of these clips, but just like not really helping is like the idea that he's not enforcing it correctly, considering he just like puts videos of black people dancing with white people as if implying that I don't think that every black person being shown here is doing moon stuff. I think that some of them are just black people making friends with the only people that were around because they're the only black person. Not saying that you can't get problematic things out of this, but he's right in terms of like a lot of this is like just a natural outcome of like being the only representative. So the answer to that is not to take that representative out. The answer is to bring more in so that people's idea of what a black person is not defined by one person. Okay, that is the true like it's not the black friend like I have a black friend racist like deflection or whatever is not racist because the black friend is racist or whatever. It's racist because it's implying that one person can explain or be representative of an entire group.
Mentality thing in play here.
Also, the racist white guy's black friend could also be racist too. There's that, but even if they aren't,
makes a lot of people far too eager to punish the behavior as opposed to doing the hard work to fix it. We need a restorative justice model toward that's that's the point of this video. By taking out Mantan, the Mau Maus maybe made a significant political statement about being on code, but had they put in the extra effort to attack someone with real power, that would have had a much more significant impact. Black political thoughts and movements have historically always gotten bogged down with petty and sometimes not so petty infighting, often by design with literal influence by the CIA.
By the FBI was very efficient, very simple, really. I'd stolen a car and went joyriding over the state limit, and they had a potential case against me, and I was looking for an opportunity to work it off. And a couple of months later, that opportunity came when FBI agent Roy Mitchell asked me to go down to the local office of the Black Panther Party and try to gain membership. Just began to realize that the information that I supplied leading up to that moment had facilitated that raid. I knew that indirectly I had contributed. And I felt it, and I felt bad about it.
And I think that's something that Spike wanted to engage with because he himself is not perfect, has plenty of criticisms, but one thing I've always liked about Spike was that he was very honest about his positions. So I think the murder of Mantan and Delacroix's subsequent murder by Sloan typify a specific conflict that Spike himself was dealing with in his career as a director, a conflict that I find myself relating to more and more, although at a much smaller scale. But I also think Spike wanted it that way. Spike didn't want to end the story in a situation where the obvious bad guys, the obvious and people doing harm to black people got exactly what they deserved. Instead, he gave us a convoluted and kind of ugly ending that doesn't feel good when you watch it. I'd argue the underlying reason for that isn't so much about Spike Lee's views on and buffoonery, and more about Spike Lee's plight of making art under white supremacy and capitalism. Spike wanted us as the viewer to feel a specific type of conflict that he himself was dealing with in his career. And it's a conflict that I see now because I find myself relating to it in this movie very differently than I did before it, although at a much smaller scale. So believe it or not, I have on more than a few occasions been called a for my content here on YouTube. Now, I don't take these accusations all that seriously. It's usually by black manosphere, black conservative types who don't like the fact that I'm insulting, Candace Owens or Kevin Samuels or something. A lot of black neocons say that all my videos is me nicely explaining racism to white liberals, and like a little bit, couple of videos early on, but if you watch my shit, that's not really true. But even in it not being true, even in being very proud about some of the ideas and issues that I help promote on my platform, I can't shake the feeling of tokenization that inevitably comes with being black and successful in a given lane, as well as the way your views and ideas get way more credit than they maybe deserve when you have a platform, making it so you become the black voice instead of one among several black voices. And I don't want to be the one black person that teaches racism to white people. I don't want to be like an item.
Sorry, that's what you are. Sorry, I have a hard time believing that when your content is pure. Here, let's just look at FD Signifier's video, and I'm going to tell you who is more likely to click on it, a black person or a white person. Okay, this is purely my subjective idea, but I'm not stupid. Not this one. I think I think a lot of like the white people that would watch him would be like, this is not my lane. I shouldn't learn about this, which honestly they should. I think that there is a lot to learn in this discourse and that you could apply to class. It doesn't align perfectly, but I think it aligns enough that where non-black people could still benefit from learning something about this. This is very much at white people. Black people don't care about white rappers. Swirlonomics, this is at white people, or to make normal black people mad. This is this is half and half. This is just sports fans. Fuck the police. This is just young people in general. This is for white people. I'm sorry. Like I'm not saying there are no black anime fans. It's just the majority of fans of Attack on Titan are white and Asian. If okay, let's see. This was supposed to be against Tyler the Creator. Tyler the Creator has a very big white audience. See, I am. Yep, this is mostly. Yep. Yeah, this is all. This is. Sorry, not sorry.
Your list that says listen to marginalized voices. I don't want to be the bread tube equivalent of The Wire, right? But in reality, every action I take, regardless of how subversive or radical I perceive it to be, even if I make a video called Fuck the Police or a video about the struggles of black boyhood, if I'm good at what I do, which I am, my audience will grow and people will respect my views and ideas and value them over others. And if I'm lucky, they'll leave a comment, a like, a super thanks, or even join the FD Signifier Patreon. For just $1, you can join the FD Signifier Patreon, but you only get my appreciation if you do that. For $3, you could have participated in the new FD Signifier movie club that met earlier in January where we talked about the film Bamboozled on a live stream, as well as access to live premieres of this video and future videos. And for $10, you get a discount on merch, which I'm wearing right now, early access to exclusive content, including live
Making a commercial in there, huh?
podcast episodes, etc. Patreon is the only income that I can safely.
I get this is how he makes money. I think it's like kind of weird to have this like hoity-toity thing and be like, yeah, this is just how people perpetuate the system of consumerism, and that's all about it. Also, by the way, buy my shirts. Like,
predict, and thus is the main source I use to invest in making better content and editors such as Needless, who edited this video on a super tight turnaround window, mind you.
I'm Sean Parker. Oh, he's wired in. That's what I'm talking about.
And by the time you're watching this, I'll be hopefully building out a full-on home studio, and that is only possible with your support. So please, if you can, sign up for the FD Signifier Patreon. Links in the description. Was that?
Wait. You have a... You definitely have enough money for a home studio. There's no way you don't.
By the way, that wasn't me.
You have 646K subscribers. You have money for a fucking studio. Why are you lying to people?
My Patreon call to action, that was genuine. Join that shit. Give me more money, please. But the fact of the matter is, having a large Patreon likely means that I'm depending on white dollars to keep it going. Does it make me to beg for the resources I need to continue to do the thing I love? Does it make a difference if my content is...
I would say no. I hope you also say that too.
Watched by a predominantly black audience or serves a predominantly black agenda if it's still funded by white dollars. But also, even if it wasn't Patreon, my sponsor Nebula is partially owned by me, but mostly owned by white people. And let's not even get into the fact that I get an AdSense check from Google. Number 7 on the Man's Hand Manifesto says, always remember, this is made by a non-threatening black male. And in my ideal self, I'm this dangerous radical figure that scares white people. But that ain't reality. Niggas cuddly. I can't fucking help it. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And sure, I'll probably have some more opportunities and more patrons if I were a little more moderate and a little less political, but you don't get to the level of success I have without being digestible to white appetites. What are my options here? What are any black artists' options? Somebody tweeted a few weeks ago that Kendrick Lamar is a white people rapper. And that bothered the fuck out of me because I get why they said that, right? It's not at all possible for Kendrick to be...
If you're a rapper of any level of popularity, you're going to become a white rapper just because the majority of people that listen to rap are white. Because hip hop is the most popular genre in the United States, and most people in the United States are white. That's changing, but it's I don't yeah, like it's just saying that like popular rappers are white rappers, which I don't like that idea. Also, the idea that like white people can't have good opinions on hip hop, which I'm not saying they have. I'm not saying every white person has a good opinion on hip hop, but I'm saying it's possible.
Become who he is right now, Kendrick Lamar, the #1 rapper in all of hip hop, without a large adoring fan base. You saw the girl saying in his face in that one meme, but does that make To Pimp a Butterfly his best album and arguably the best rap album of the last 2 decades any less of a love letter to blackness? I don't know. What is the take there? And I think that's a question Spike is leaving in the air here, because Spike Lee isn't just a black director. He's Spike Lee, the most prolific, successful, radical, outspoken, and decorated black filmmaker of all time. And he's done nothing but make black movies of various permutations, but he's had to do them all with white money and has at times had to depend on white viewers who make his project successful. Because if he's too black or too experimental, as with in Bamboozled, the film flops, which Bamboozled did. So even as successful and skilled and respected as he is in a white supremacist capitalist society, that means that Spike has to stop in between every project and put his hand out for money. Maybe it's not a Patreon call to action, but it's built from the same.
I feel like there's enough black money that Spike Lee could get like a rich black benefactor to finance movies. I guarantee. I don't know if he just refuses to work with them or whatever. I'm sure off the top of my head, Jay-Z has enough money to finance a movie. Spike Lee. I don't know if Jay-Z and Spike don't get along or something, but to say that like all black, especially now, I think things are more decentralized now than they ever have been, and like what the point he's making is getting less true.
Parts. And for what? To still also be limited in what he can talk about. To still get half the budget of his less talented...
I'm sorry, like I have a hard time thinking that Spike Lee doesn't have enough money to make the movies he wants. I don't believe that, okay? Fucking Kevin Smith was able to make Clerks with a black and white VHS camera in the early 90s, and you're telling me Spike fucking Lee couldn't be like, oh no, my funders and stuff like that. I don't think that that's the problem. I guarantee you, Spike Lee, there is enough money in Black Hollywood to finance Spike Lee. I just feel like there's other reasons that he's not being financed. I would like to talk about that and learn about it, but yeah, no, I have a hard time believing that. And the only reason I say that there's enough money to facilitate Spike Lee and stuff like that is that like there's lots of like there are lots of black movie studios. Like it's not the 80s anymore.
That's proven white ears. Do y'all know James Somerton had more patrons than me before he got outed as a plagiarist? Are y'all fucking kidding me? James Somerton had more patrons than me? And you have to consider, like, if Spike wasn't there, what more radical, more dynamic, more progressive black art voices are we not getting because Spike is in the spot that he's in? I think he thinks about that.
I think Boots Riley, Sorry to Bother You is is probably better than Bamboozled in terms of actually like addressing like um what the message of what Spike Lee was trying to send with him.
I think Spike understands that he just has a dream. He's just
I think Boots Riley is better, by the way, because Spike Lee lacks the class analysis that Boots Riley has.
Artist, and he's trying his best to get the resources he needs while not compromising more than what he's comfortable with. So he can.
I don't think Boots Riley's movies are better. I think he's better at put that. I don't think Boots Riley has come close to do the right thing. I think even Boots Riley would tell you that.
Make his art, but he also is still processing and wants us as the viewer to process that this still comes at a price. And that's why I think the film ends with this montage of minstrel actors and figures with a really sentimental vibe. In watching the end of this movie and seeing all of the minstrelsy, it's not judgmental really. It's more bittersweet because you're supposed to remember that a lot of these people either didn't know any better or didn't have many other options. And at the end of the day, still suffered because now they're permanently crystallized in time as these images that we get to watch Step and Fetch It 100 years after he made his first couple of movies and still see him speak and move and talk this way. And that is its own form of suffering, all for the sake of making art, which is why that montage ends with this long close-up of Mantan for the camera. It's a reminder not to be too comfortable or proud on your status and maybe be more critical with how we engage with and regard figures like Mantan. Because in reality, we are all still shucking and jiving on some level to make it. We are all still putting on the new millennial minstrel show. Now, I think there's a huge difference between what Spike Lee does and what Tyler Perry does, what Kendrick Lamar does and what Drake does. And there's still a huge difference between the type of content that I'm making and the goals inherent in that content and some other black creators who just so happen to get called much, much, much more than I did. It forces us to ask, is your success a byproduct of you telling white audiences exactly what they want to hear, hiding from addressing and promoting black issues, assuring your white viewers that they're the good ones for listening to you? Or are you trying to do the opposite? Are you making art that is challenging, taking risks with what you've built, and never forgetting the fact that you still operate in the same system as everyone else does? Are you debasing yourself for white validation?
Okay, I have a new problem now. I think I figured out what he's doing. He's doing White Shadow, but woke. Or Black Shadow, but it's a concept that has been talked about. It was that's Black Shadow or whatever is the it's something I've felt even before is like when I do like when I used to do certain race based material, I would see white people like Dave Chappelle has also mentioned this too. Not that I'm anywhere near any of that. I'm just talking about White Shadow, Black Shadow idea is like if I say a racist joke or something like that, like about the joke is about race or whatever, not that the joke itself is racist. And I see like a white guy like laugh a little too hard at it, like, okay, like what are you laughing at? Because like I don't think what like the joke I'm saying and what you're getting from it, I think are two different things, and I have to be cognizant of that. Well, especially if you do any kind of like edgy race content or whatever. Um, it's he is now creating a counter Black Shadow to the White Shadow. Okay, so he is like basically talking about like basically second guessing himself on like, oh, am I only popular because I appeal to white audiences? In a way, yeah, but that's because they're the majority of people, not because the content you make perpetuates white supremacy or whatever. I think this like idea that like white people are consciously like pushing for content that um like reaffirms kind of like white supremacy in their ideas. I don't think that's completely correct. Like even my white grandma like loves Kamau Bell. And this idea that like white people can't get on board with like black liberation that it has to not offend their sensibilities and stuff like that. I think that's not completely true. I think that you can be a legit black artist, push talking about black issues to a majority white audience and it not be because you're like approachable enough, you're good enough, something like that. I would say that that's the case for FD Signifier for sure, but for like Kendrick Lamar, fuck no. Kendrick's just so good that even if he makes white people uncomfortable, they don't care. They're still gonna bump it anyway because the music is so good that their discomfort takes a backseat.
For you watching, and I know you are, you might think you're not debasing yourself, but are you sure? I'm just saying, if the only black folks on your side are also black folks that are never in community with other black folks, I don't know, we might have
I'm more in community with black people than okay.
Point. But regardless
it's like most black people don't give a fuck about race mixing. They at worst will make like a snide comment about it, but at the end, like they don't inherently have an issue with it. I don't even think most would make a snide comment. They'll just be like, oh, whatever. Love is love. The ideas, like the idea that like black people in general like vibe with everything this guy says or does, or even his community says and does, is just not true. He panders to the most reactionary elements of the like pro-black community. And you would say, well, he was an appeal to like Candace Owens. Well, that's because Candace Owens isn't pro-black, but there are reactionary pro-black people, and they flock to, and they don't make up the majority of black people. By the way, the majority of black people are apolitical, in that it's not that they don't have political opinions. They just like don't vote or hold on, do the majority of black people don't vote? I'm pretty sure. I know it's higher than other groups, but it's the median American, regardless of race, is fairly like apolitical. With they respond well to populist rhetoric, and usually they'll do like a South Park everybody's stupid as a way of never having to engage with their ideas.
That it's not lost on me that both I and Candace Owens collect checks from Google, so I need not get too comfortable in what my role in this equation is either.
Wait, hold on, I'm gonna check something. I thought Candace Owens got. Yeah, YouTube has been demonetizing Candace Owens videos.
And when my video, Being White Isn't Real and Here's Why, comes out, it is coming out, and that Patreon number drops, nobody should be surprised, because to be shocked by the idea that certain white folks can't abide by certain black ideologies means that you...
I don't think that that's true. I think there are plenty of white people, people of all skin colors, that can abide by anti-racism. I don't think that you are like, I feel like he's like setting up his own fall off to blame it on racism, rather than, I think a lot of people don't like how he's using this rhetoric to target people he simply disagrees with, rather than actually engage.
Bamboozled. You might have noticed that almost every time I said the word, you heard a little raccoon noise over it. And that's because despite everything I've said in this video, YouTube feels that is a racial slur regardless of who says it. Mind you, I can say nigga all I want. I didn't block out any of the niggas in this video. YouTube seems to have enough sense in that regard. However, if I say the hard R, this video will get demonetized. And I don't like that, because that means that YouTube doesn't understand the difference between me talking about what it feels like to be called a nigger versus...
It's because it's all automated. That's why. I mean, you might get special attention because you're a big sub count or whatever, but like, this is an issue with the amount of content that's on YouTube.
PewDiePie just saying nigger because he thinks it's funny. But YouTube is a giant corporation owned...
Also, I'm going to say that the historic, I'm going to say it's different for like Nordic people. They will like European people that don't have a lot of like interaction with American black people, because like the N-word is very much a like American thing. I'm not saying that it's not said outside of there, but the historical context is different. Like, white people here know like the venom it has because of their proximity to black people who usually have black friends that will tell you, yeah, that shit ain't cool or whatever. Whereas that doesn't really exist in I'm not saying it's not racist, but I'm saying that the context is different. PewDiePie's still racist for doing it. He's done a lot of other sussy stuff, but I consumed like art from like Nordics and stuff like that. They are very, very much more looser with it in ways, and I think it's because they just don't. It's more of an ignorance thing than like a venom thing. Still not good, but I feel like that delineation should be made as a way to reach better understanding.
Google, it sadly doesn't.
Because when you argue with, because arguing against somebody with hate in their heart and arguing against ignorant people requires vastly different tactics. That's why the delineation is important.
Not surprise me. However, if you want to watch this video and not hear raccoon noises all through it, please check out today's sponsor, my streaming service, Nebula. YouTube is an amazing overall platform. I don't want that to be lost, but it has its AI. Talk about too much, but
Okay, I did that. Live, how much is Lethal Company? I might buy it. Who knows? Probably not gonna stream it tonight, but there we go. We got through it. We did it. We did it, folks. Let's see what here. Let's. I need to learn how to do a redirect. I'm going probably to send you guys to Tipster as soon as I learn how to do that. Okay. We're gonna figure this out. I got
used to be if you want to skim it just to get an own on that chatter who thinks POCD isn't real. Yeah, I noticed that what is it? I noticed that Chasing Dopamine sent me some stuff too. I didn't want to Google it because I just didn't want that in my search history. But if somebody wants to send me a direct link that I could just look up, I'll take a look at it. And that's exactly what Fembro did. So let's take a look at this. Oh God, I'll be honest. It genuinely amazes me that this is a real thing because prior to this, I had no clue that this was a real thing. But yeah, where is that chatter? Who was the chatter that was calling me out? Soul Vigilante. They probably already left, but that's okay. Here's what it is. All about pedophilia OCD or POCD. Pedophilia OCD, also known as POCD, is a distressing form of OCD involving a fear of being or becoming a pedophile, but living with POCD isn't the same as having pedophilia. Pedophilia obsessive compulsive disorder is a subtype of OCD with intrusive thoughts or obsessions based on the fear that you might be or become a pedophile. These obsessive thoughts can lead to anxiety and compulsions, which can cause serious disruptions in your life. But POCD is not the same
Anybody
as
in chat
pedophilia.
wants to
If
tell
you're
me
living
how.
with POCD, you aren't a monster. Help is available, and
Okay,
you can learn
redirect.
to challenge the cope with these thoughts, no matter how disturbing they may be to you. So yes, it is a real thing. Jesus, I had no fucking clue that was a legitimate thing prior to this stream. Wow.
Conventional in terms
It's very
of
unconventional, but to a therapist, but to any therapist or like mental health specialist, like they are, honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, like it almost seems as if like therapists and etc. like they are like the edgiest.
Oh, I didn't know that. Fembro is a psych major about to get their bachelor's. Well, congratulations on that. I didn't know. I believe you did tell me like you were going to school for something. I just don't remember if you told me for what. But hey, that's pretty awesome.
Motherfuckers ever. like they are much more out of the norm than like normies. Like yeah.
Well, that's why I was asking before if it was a therapist or if it was a clinical psychologist.
Yeah.
The other question then is, this is kind of what Rezi asked, but couldn't you have found that extreme power dynamic, the absolute top and
Okay.
bottom disparity in
How
some
much-
other form of media that isn't depicting children as being the
Exactly. Like, okay, so if you're into that sort of like thing, there's tons of role play porn and stuff like
Yeah,
that
I
you
have two
can
people
look
watching.
at.
Okay,
That's
just go to Tipster.